On this episode of CPR Ford Garage, I go to Wyoming and resurrect this 69 F100 and then drive it back to Montana in the dark in a snowstorm. And yes, this is Bruce's old seat. Are you ready? Yeah. There's no honker on it. No. Hi, welcome to CPR Ford Garage. This is Vicky, my newly acquired 69 Ford F100, two-wheel drive, long bed, 360 two-barrel with the C6.
What are you talking to?
Talking to the internet. Do you want to say anything to them? Do you want to say hi? Why don't you wave? Say hi, internet. So, named Vicky because of what will come later, but basically at this point it is going to be a resurrection from having been sitting in the field for about 13 years and not driving. Okay, so here's a quick walk around. So as far as I know, this truck has been sitting in a field since 2003. I'll let you know what all I have and what I did. I've already gotten it started. Basically, I came down here on another weekend and checked some things on the engine, did what I needed to do, and got it started running and driving, but it has no brakes, and I basically figured out everything that it would need to be roadworthy, and now I am back with all of those parts. Love the 69 grill. Hopefully I can straighten all of that out and make it good again. A little strip and polish and new blinkers. I really like that patina on the hood. I'm not sure if it's going to be painted or not yet at this point. It is going to get cut down to a short bed, so we will cross that bridge when we get there. So after I assessed it, like I said, it has no brakes. I don't see any leaks in any of the wheel areas, so also a bunch of bubbles in the master cylinder pumping the pedal with the cap off. So I believe the master cylinder is just toast. Have a master cylinder, brake fluid, oil filter, Walmart's finest conventional oil, some type F ATF tranny fluid because that's what it takes. I did put a little bit of regular tranny fluid in it to get it going. Somewhere in there I also have an ignition switch because I don't know what happened, but say hi, Roni.
Hi.
I don't know what happened, but this was hanging down. I had to actually hot wire it to get it started. I found pieces of the electrical, that's not, but pieces of the electrical ignition switch on the floor that somebody either broke it or it just disintegrated. Here's the rest of it there. And here is the cylinder, the actual lock cylinder, which is still good. I have a new switch for that, so it won't have to be hot wired. Inside is pretty rough. The stereo installation, I am definitely not responsible for that.
Why is there no honker?
And there's no honker, as Roni said, so we'll do what we can with that. Let's check out under the hood and I'll go over what I've done. There is a 360 in all its glory. I'll tell you what I did to get it going on the previous trip down here. Basically, the story with this truck is it's been sitting in a field since at least the mid-2000s. My dad has a friend who asked him to sell it for him, which he did. My dad hit me up about it a couple times, like, hey, do you want it? You could get it for pretty cheap. I wasn't real warm on it. And then he told me that there was somebody that had a four-wheel drive truck who wanted this truck for the body, and he was going to give him $800 for it. He didn't really want to see it get parted and just put on and used as a donor truck. So he said, if you'll give me $800 for it as well, or his friend, I'll just sell it to you. So I said sure. So I bought it sight unseen. He had texted me some pictures of it and that, but I bought it before I came down here to look at it. So then I came down here to northern Wyoming to look at it. And the first thing I did was put a breaker bar on the snout of the crank. Fords, these old Fords are almost all 15/16 socket size, I believe, or 7/8. They're all the same size. Cranked it over by hand with a breaker bar, and which it did crank over. So the next thing I did was I zipped out all of the spark plugs and squirted some penetrating oil into all the cylinders, and I let it set for a few hours. I actually, from the time I got here to the time I had this truck running, was about 4 or 5 hours. After that penetrating oil set for a while, I cranked it over some more with the breaker bar, put the spark plugs back in, and then it was to the point of trying to crank it over with a battery. The truck had totally dead old battery in it that's probably junk. I brought a battery down here with me, one out of Bruce's old battery, since I put an Optima in him. So that's on the charger right now. I tried to crank it over, I had nothing. So at that point, what I did was got out my voltmeter. I figured I could hear the solenoid clicking on the firewall. So basically chased it down to I had power at the starter. I was just jumping it out here at this point. I wasn't trying to use the ignition switch at all. And I had nothing. So I finally got it to the point of, okay, maybe the starter's junk. So I crawled under there. This thing has some very interesting exhaust that somebody did on it at some point, and that starter was a real bad word to get out of there. I got it out though, and the starter looked brand new, weirdly enough. It looked like it had no, I mean, even the teeth on the gear had no wear. So I thought, oh, that's weird. So I took the starter out and put it on the bench, tried to bench test it, nothing. Started taking it apart to mess with it, and the cover that covers up the actuator, when I would take that off, it would run on the bench perfectly fine, the starter. So I thought, what the heck is going on? And I don't know why, but just from experience with these trucks and having a few of them and changing starters, I thought that for some reason there was supposed to be a rubber gasket between that cover and the starter body. I always just thought it was to keep dirt, water, whatever out. Well, no, it's not. It needs to be there for the starter to work, because apparently what happens is the linkage in there just grounds out against that cover. No current actually goes through the starter if you don't have that gasket in there. So I took a piece of inner tube that was laying around, bike inner tube, cut it up to fit, stuck it in there, and voila, totally good. I'll try to get... Are you steering my wheel? Should be easy enough. The collar right there unthreads if somebody didn't He-Man it on there. The collar right there unthreads. Here's a lovely interior cooling fan that came, I'm guessing, left by the same person that's responsible for this Butamus stereo install and Scooby-Doo air freshener. Anyway, let's see if I can do this one-handed. So, plan A is to clip that into there, one-handed, which I believe it is. Okay, yep. And then, this guy just snakes in there from the backside. There's a groove on it that holds it. It feels like it's in there. And then this collar just threads on from the front. I'm gonna have to stop here to get it started because I don't have 3 arms. This is one of the things I love about working on old trucks. Popping the gas filler out so I can get a look down in the tank if there's any crud and sediment, or if maybe I'll just be able to drain it and fill it with some fresh gas. I hear when I go to tilt the seat forward, what is that? Bonus toolkit. Don't know what's in it because it's all tied into the seat cover, but I'll get it out of there and we'll have a look. I call it carkeology. Get it? Only missing one bit driver socket. That is a freaking score, and we'll stay with this truck. So I flipped the seat forward, disconnected the filler neck here, moved it out of the way enough to stick a flashlight down in there, and you can see all this ashy white growtiness. The inside of the tank is pretty grody, so I'm just pulling it out. I'm gonna dump it and flush it and put fresh gas in it. All it really entails unhooking sender wires right there and unhooking the fuel fitting right here. There is a pickup tube that goes all the way down into the tank that is, I believe, part of the tank welded in there from what I remember from my other bump side. 3 bolts across the top. Filler's already disconnected and she will come right out. Alright, there we go. Was gonna grab my son to help me lift that out. It's probably only got a 1/4 tank in it, 1/3 of a tank maybe, so not bad. But this, if I can get a shot of it, is why I did not just fire the truck up with the fuel line hooked up to it. What is that? Anyway, you can see the varnish in there. There's a bunch of this ashy white crud and just sediment down in there, and all of that would have been in the fuel filter, which maybe I could have just kept swapping fuel filters until it stopped getting plugged up. But you know what, these behind the cab tanks are pretty super easy to pull. Just pull it out, flush it out, put fresh gas in it, and then what I'm gonna do is unhook the line at the fuel pump on the engine and blow compressed air through here. Ooh, I can even feel some crusty crap in there. Blow it through there just to make sure there's nothing in there before I fill it up with fresh gas and try to run it. We are like 3 months later, I think it was. What can I say? Life gets in the way. So back here with the Vicky truck, the 69 F100 down at my dad's in Wyoming. Bringing it home this time. It's Thanksgiving weekend, so this will be the rest of the revival and road trip back to Billings. So far I got new master cylinder installed. I changed the oil, and the massive oil leak underneath was from a, oh, where is it? Don't know where it went now. But it was from like a copper sealing washer for brake fittings being used for the drain plug gasket. Don't do that. It doesn't crush and seal. So I went to the parts store and got a nylon or whatever plastic sealing washer, and that should be good to go now. Got it filled up with oil, new oil filter, and just got done bleeding the brakes. So looking pretty good. Just gotta wait for the battery to finish charging up. And I was looking at these mirrors, and they are actually forward mirrors. Pretty cool. Not my flavor that I want for this truck, but I think they'll make their way onto the wife's truck with some new hardware and all polished up because they're in really good shape. Just need to replace a few fuel hoses and it'll be about ready to fire up. Well, here's the maiden voyage with brakes. All 4 of them even, it feels like anyway. Transmission was slipping. I just drove it around the yard real quick last night and the transmission was slipping pretty bad. So I checked it, no fluid on the dipstick. So I am just running up to the store real quick to get some gas and see if they have Ford Type F ATF. I doubt it, but I guess we'll see. This will be the farthest I've driven it yet. If that seems all good, then I will head to the next town over to pick up my new wiper blades that I ordered yesterday. Well, here's the first issue. Smelled gassy when I got back in the cab. That's a problem. I guess the other fuel hoses weren't the only ones that were all rotted. Alright, here we go. Hitting the road.
Yeah.
Driving on the wrong side of the road a little bit. Me and Bryce with the Bruce seat.
And Vicky.
There's Mom. Here we go.
5.
Well, there you go, YouTube. Back at the CPR Ford garage now. Made it. That was about it for the brakes. It sat for a few days outside of my house and now has almost no brake pedal, and I see fluid running out on the backing plates on the rear. So the new master cylinder with more pressure probably blew out all of the seals in the wheel cylinders now. But I'll let you know what's going on with this and what the plan is. So you noticed in my other video probably this bed I have sitting here for a bump side. And I mean, this bed is just beat. The floor is rotten, the tailgate's no good. So, hello Bruce. I scored this bed, this tailgate, outer fenders, which of course they're rusty at the bottom like they all are, inner fenders, which are mint, because that's nice because the inner fenders on that pickup are totally rotten, and a bunch of other miscellaneous parts for a cheap price, very cheap, on the Facebook. The only thing, this bed is a 71, I believe it is, or 70, and has a marker light here instead of continuing the bump, which the 69 bed does. It just continues the bump all the way out. I like that. That's a much cleaner look. So I'll have to figure out what to do about that. But if you can, this bed floor is mint. I also have a complete cab, which I'm probably not going to use, but I don't know. The cab on the blue pickup is in pretty decent shape. It needs, of course, cab corners, cab mounts, the regular stuff. But the cross members, the braces that go to the rockers that always rust out, are good. And other than that, it's in good shape, and the doors fit it pretty well, so I'm probably not going to use this. Also, somebody did a very poor job of starting to fill in the gas filler hole. And this is a later cab, so it has the 5 studs across the top, so that the tank fits in there a little bit different. But as you can see, the cab mounts on this thing are mint. Alright, so you're probably wondering what the plan is with this truck, why I drug it out of a field. Basically, I like two-wheel drive pickups to be lowered and have plenty of power and be kind of a muscle car type of deal. They're a lot cheaper to build than actual muscle cars, which makes them attractive to me on a budget. So the 77 orange pickup I have was a really nice survivor. It is a really nice survivor. So I'm basically going to do to this blue pickup what I couldn't do to the orange pickup because it's too nice, and then also what my wife will not let me do to the red and white pickup because she doesn't like lowered trucks and all of that. So what I'm gonna do is, this is gonna be lowered. It's going to be lower than my orange pickup. It's gonna have modern suspension and brakes, and if you're into classic Ford pickups, you probably know what that means. And I'm going to do it on a budget, doing everything myself, and basically showing you how, if you can't afford to pay somebody to do these things, you can do it yourself. It's going to be built in stages, so overall that's a more expensive way to build, but the way I want to do it was it'll be a cheaper initial build and then move on to bigger and better things as we go, because I want to show what you can do with what you already have. The engine in this pickup seems strong. Well, not powerful strong. It seems like it runs pretty good. It might have been rebuilt. A 2-barrel 360 is not a powerhouse by any means, but I'm going to reuse everything that I can from the truck and also everything from the donor vehicle that I can, and do it on as much of a budget as possible. So if you like what you see, there's going to be plenty more to come from this, so please like, subscribe, ring the bell, whatever it is that you do on YouTube. And thanks for watching.